Summer Circuit NA Qualifier number 5. I'm Osmo, joined by Hotform. We actually had technical difficulty, so it feels like we've done this 3 times already. But Hotform, how you doing today, man?
I'm pretty, I'm pretty good, thanks. Yeah, I'm looking forward to these games. It's gonna be awesome between
Yeah,
Nostam and Justsaiyan. With this really stacked lineup. I mean, we were talking about that before. Yeah, these are some of the best players that we've seen in any of these qualifiers. They seem to have all made it through on kind of the same day, so it's gonna be a really exciting set of matches, I think.
yeah, for sure. And to let you guys know what this basically is, it's the top 4 players or the semifinals from the NA Qualifier that happened yesterday for the Summer Circuit. So these players have already played through probably 7 or 8 best of fives to get to where they are today. This is just sort of the continuation and the broadcast of matches at the end of that. So
Yeah.
today they'll be competing for $250 worth of prizes. They'll be competing for GEICO points as well as World Championship points, and of course the coveted spot in one of the feature tournaments. And of course, that feature tournament leads right into the grand finals that happens at PAX at the end of August. So lots on the line for these guys going to be playing today. The other match is going to be, besides Nostam and Justsaiyan, is Dart versus Powder. So those 4 players, pretty good players, I'd say.
Yeah. Did you mention that there was prize money today too?
Yeah, $250, $250
Yeah.
prize pool.
So these guys definitely want to win these matches. Like it's not only advancement, but it's also immediate prize, and you get so many rewards from this that you can tell these guys are going to fight their hardest. They're going to focus on these matches and give us a real good series.
Yep, for sure. And of course, first matchup is going to be Nostam from Grand National Champions versus Justsaiyan, who's actually the new player for Tempo Storm. So this guy has been getting a lot of coverage lately. He was a pretty popular player. He made his way through tournaments, and he was a streamer. He was well known for like coaching a lot of the top streamers and being a player
Yeah.
that people would go to for advice. And now he's found his way onto a big team. So looking for some breakout performances to show Reynad that he was worth the investment.
Yeah, that's well put. Also, he's the only person today who didn't bring Warrior, which is
Mhm.
pretty interesting. He had talked about Patron Warrior a lot. I know he had got some of his top finishes on ladder with Patron, so to not have brought Patron Warrior is a pretty big statement.
Yeah, decided to bring Shaman and Mage instead of like Warrior and Warlock, which most players have been bringing. I know in the EU qualifier on Tuesday, I believe almost every single player had Warlock, Warrior, Hunter,
Yeah.
which seems to be like the top 3 classes for most players at the moment.
Yep.
But that seems to be shifting as a lot of players over the past like 2 days or 3 days have just said that Rogue is starting to make a comeback in the meta at the moment.
Yeah, you're right that's the Warlock Warrior Hunter is definitely one of the most popular lineups right now. Patron Warrior, of course, being the warrior pick. So we get the first game. Yeah. Gonna have Nostam with the Hunter and just saying with the Rogue. This is a pretty interesting match. The Face Hunter does better than mid range, but the Rogue has a pretty good chance against mid range. I'd say it's really even actually.
Yeah, a lot of times with Face it comes down to a race, and Rogues usually never can't win a race against Face Armor. But
Yeah.
with mid range, a lot of times you can control, let's say, the board early, and then like sap a high main to really like reduce the pressure and get a huge amount of tempo. So, and when your deck is all golden, like just Saiyans Rogue is, you also have intimidation factor.
Got that extra edge. Yeah, that's true. Nostam's is all plain and Just Saying's is all golden, so we'll get to see the humble versus the jewels.
Hmm.
Well, definitely a start that you look for as the rogue backstab and SI agent on turn 3 is going to give him a really big creature. That's probably a freezing trap since it's mid-range hunter. So
Yeah, there have been some mid range hunters who have been putting in explosive or snake, but the majority of the mid-range hunters that you see in ladder and and in competitive are freezing trap, and his hand is gray now. I guess the producers just didn't want us to realize that those were golden cards.
I guess we're having some color issues. There we go. He has color to his hand again.
Yes.
So Nostam made a really good play last turn by killing the SI agent with the weapon. He could have let the SI agent trigger the trap, but he knows that the rogue is going to play. Pretty much every creature is going to be bigger than that 3/3, so he gets
Hmm.
to potentially freeze the shredder here and get a lot more value.
Yeah. This is a pretty nice set of turns here for Justsaiyan, though. His hand is lined up pretty nicely. Shredder and Azure Drake are really good against Hunter just because they're sticky and they don't die to just a quick shot or just a bow. They have to use like a card or a creature or multiple cards to try and remove those off the board.
Yep.
Now Lothab's going to come down, which Lothab is the bane of rogues since the majority of their deck are spells.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's really hard for him to kill that. He might just ignore it. He could take the trap with the Drake and then use the Shredder and attack with the weapon, taking 5 damage. The thing is, this turn is the really bad turn for the Rogue, where he can't do a lot and it looks like he's going to take damage no matter what. But next turn, he has 2 saps ready. He knows that there's going to be a high main, or at least he's going to have a feeling of that high main. So he's looking forward to playing a lot faster in the future.
Yep. And he gets an above average creature from the Paladin Shredder. Fairy Dragon can be problematic
Yeah.
for hunters, and this just seems like a high main turn. He can. There's maybe Juggler Unleash because there's really never going to be more than 2 creatures on the board a lot of times when you're playing against a rogue. But turn 6 is like the high main turn. It's super vulnerable to sap, but I don't
Yeah.
know. It just seems like you'll be vulnerable to sap for the whole game. Can you afford to just hold on to that Savannah high main for longer?
I mean, so we don't know exactly how many cards left in Justsayan's deck, but we're probably looking at slightly over half, like 17 cards left. His chance to have a sap is going to be above 50%, well above 50%, and looking at like 60 to 65% chance to have it. So the odds are against you succeeding with the high main. But yeah, there's just not a lot of other good plays there. The Juggler Unleash is better next turn because you can fit a steady shot in with it. I don't really like that he killed the fairy dragon, but I guess that's the play he's going with. Since the rogue's already at 16, you can push a lot of face damage.
Yeah. And now Jussaiyan's got 2 creatures on the board, staring at an empty board on the other side. He's at a health disadvantage, but at a huge board advantage. And he does have Deadly Poison plus Tinker Sharp Soil next turn, which is a huge amount of damage from hand. And he's guaranteed to have 1 creature stick. So this is 8 plus 6 plus 2. So 16 damage.
Oh, the eviscerate. Does the eviscerate make it an exact 20 then? Um,
No, because he doesn't have enough mana to dagger deadly plus
yeah.
tinker. Eviscerate would be 5 though, so that would actually be more damage than deadly. But I think he's 1 off. No, because he can't combo the oil.
You're right that he's definitely one mana off anyways. If he had the ability to play the eviscerate on this turn, he would get him. That Stranglethorn Tiger was not from a web spinner. That was actually in Nostam's deck, and that is just the play he needed here. Like that was perfect. It sets him up for lethal next turn. It's unremovable. I guess Nostam
Wow.
would be fearing the flurry there, but didn't come.
Yeah, and yeah, that ends up being the MVP of this game. And Nostam is going to take game 1, despite what looked like a pretty strong game from Just Saying. It seemed like those are the types of situations you want if you're the rogue player, where you can control the state of the board early on, have a sap for the big target, and then push through with oil. But he just didn't have enough damage, quite enough damage to finish it out before the Stranglethorn Tiger took him down.
That's Stranglethorn Tiger. To see that included as an actual creature, and it works so well there. That was just what Nostam needed. Like, absolutely great play by him. He chose to kill the Fairy Dragon before. I think if he hadn't done that, the Fairy Dragon would have attacked him twice, maybe giving more lethal opportunity.
Mhm.
It was just like really well played. And imagine if he had had the Stranglethorn Tiger on the high main turn. That creature was absolutely amazing in every way that game. Well
Yeah,
played.
yeah, and I was looking at Jab, who is like one of the mid-range hunter gods of Hearthstone.
Yep.
He's been putting Stranglethorn Tiger in his lists for, I think, about a week now. He always posts his updated lists on Twitter, and so I always check those out. And the one that he posted yesterday or this morning had Stranglethorn Tiger in it. So not surprised to see it in Nostam's as well, who's also usually pretty high up on the ladder as well. It's a really interesting choice, and it seems like it's strong against Rogue because it guarantees you 5 damage as long as you're not too vulnerable to Blade Flurry, and it's unsappable, which
Yeah.
is a pretty big deal.
I think it's probably also strong against warriors, patron warrior or control warrior both. It's just a creature they can't target, so you're going to get that extra damage in. Whereas something like a druid, maybe not quite as good because they're going to have taunts and stuff to stop you. But in the like key matchups here, it's going to be really good. Anyways, it moves on. Justsaiyan is playing rogue again, not willing to give up his favorite class, I think, or at least one of his top picked of all time.
Yeah, and he does have a decent amount of removal, which is what you need against Mech Shaman early on, because if they have just a couple things stick early, sometimes they can get you low enough to where they'll just burn you out later on in the game. And so being able to deal with this Whirling's Appomattox is actually a huge deal, even though rogues are probably the class that can deal with it usually the easiest. If you can't and you end up taking 6 damage for a turn or 2 turns, sometimes it's a little too much.
Yeah. It looked like Saiyan was contemplating using the Eviscerate there, and that might have been a really good play because he had the Thalnos in his hand as well for the backstab leader and 2 Eviscerates, so he could have used that backstab with the spell power to maybe pick up a lot of tempo on a future turn. In this case, he just gets the weapon on, which doesn't really help him much next turn, but the Eviscerate is going to be able to kill the spider tank.
Yeah. The one bad thing about it, though, is he doesn't have a good turn 4 play.
Yeah.
If he coins out, if he plays Blood Mage and then coins out Eviscerate. But I think interrupting just I guess sort of the tempo from the Mech Mage is a bigger deal. And I mean, he does have Fan, so he can like Fan for 2 damage next turn, or even just Eviscerate for 3 if there's some really a scary creature that comes out.
Both players playing a little awkward here. Although the Fire Guard looks good this turn, he has 2 Doomhammers and he's only going to have 4 mana next turn. So that's a bit rough to not be able to play that.
But Justsaiyan sort of whiffs. Just has to use Fan and Knives, and now not developing a creature on the board. He's going to give Nostam a pretty big opening here, and pretty fortunate for Nostam, who actually finds a creature to play on this turn. Since you mentioned the double Doomhammer with a clunky hand, he would have only had Burn if he didn't pick up anything. Oh, and he actually lightning bolts the Blood Mage Thalnos.
Really doesn't like that Blood Mage.
Suppose not.
So I guess his strategy is just to keep the rogue's board clear, and that way there's going to be no shenanigans. The rogue will just have to play from his hand each turn. Doomhammer is really good in this matchup, by the way, because the rogue doesn't have any taunts, and it's going to have a low amount of healing. But it'll be interesting if he actually has time to attack with 2 of them, because the game will probably end before that point.
He has to attack over 8 turns in order to get benefit from both of those Doomhammers. And usually if you haven't killed them by the time you equip a second Doomhammer, then you did something wrong, and a lot of times you'll just be dead by that point if you're the Mech Shaman. You just don't have cards, so I don't know, it just feels like in a long game you're not going to win.
Well, I mean, I think we can see the Shaman strategy developing here. We have only damage in his hand, just directly to face, and he's hoping, that that's going to line up before the rogue can kill him. It'll be up to Saiyan to figure out how to do the most damage back while surviving and finishing the game before he dies.
Yeah. Heal Bot will be a pretty big tool because he'll be able to develop his board over the next couple turns, and then maybe the Heal Bot will heal him enough out of range to be able to survive an extra turn to piece together the damage he needs to actually kill Nostam.
Yep.
So this hand is pretty good because he's got a large abundance of really good creatures. Ooh, Rockbiter.
The damage next turn, I think, is lethal then.
Wow. So 10 from the Doomhammer plus 8 from spells. Yeah, that's 18 damage. And he will have more than enough mana to be able to fit that in. We'll see if Justsaiyan. So if he reads into this, he says, okay, he just passed a turn. All he did was totem. So he's going to say his hand is full of spells. So going to go ahead and heal up now. Definitely the smart move.
Yep.
Nostam, though, still just a spell power totem away. A spell power totem and a... Nope, never mind. A second rock biter away from killing him.
Yeah. It looks kind of distant, but Saiyan doesn't have any damage next turn. So there's going to be a point here where Nostam can decide, do I, say, Lava Burst the Lotheb to try to survive an extra turn? Or do I save it all and go face? And from a rogue, you expect some damage, but when we look at Saiyan's hand, we can see he just has 3 creatures and a sap. Nostam could just attack this turn and wait for the next turn. He actually has the option to clear the entire board here if he wants to.
Ooh. I look like he targeted that at the... Oh, nope, it was at the face. For a second, it looked like he targeted at the anti-heal bot, but I think that was just the cursor on its way to the face. Brushed the edge of the anti-heal bot. Well, he puts him at 4, so now he needs like Earthring Farseer or a second heal bot if he has one, or he just needs to kill him.
Oil damage is 11, 12 plus 6, 18. Saiyan has been heartbreakingly close both of these games, and Nostam sets up lethal for next turn. I think there's nothing that can be done. He can Drake into Earthen.
Wow.
That's his only play that I can see here.
Yeah, and there's a potential he might not even be running Earthring Farseers here, but he's going to go ahead and check for it, and doesn't hit it. I know Dog's been running like double heal bot, no Earthen Rings, sometimes when he runs rogue, but wow.
That spell power totem actually made the entire difference. Now Nostam still could have drawn damage next turn, even if the spell power totem hadn't been there, but to get the spell power, putting him exactly at 4, right for the 2 Doomhammer attacks, I mean, that was just picture perfect Shaman play. What can you say? He wanted the totem and he got it.
Now imagine when Shamans with the new card that was announced for the grand tournament where they can pick their totems.
Yeah.
Shamans are going to be overpowered.
New cards.
No, but Nostam is just 1 game away, a warrior game win away from moving on to the finals of this tournament. And this is the continuation of the bracket, so this is not double elimination. So if Justsaiyan loses this match, he has no chance of actually winning the whole thing. So it'd be pretty heartbreaking to get all the way through the qualifier yesterday, come into today with high hopes for maybe qualifying for the feature, and then going out 3-0 in the first matchup of the broadcast would be pretty tough for Justsaiyan. And now he's got to beat Patron Warrior 3 times in a row, which is definitely a tough task.
So for the Rogue, I mean, this is probably what he wanted to face with the Rogue. Of any of the matches that he wanted to have, he wanted to play against the Patron Warrior. Honestly, the Mech Shaman, I'm really surprised, beat the Rogue. I mean, that worked out quite well for him, but he had no creatures. He had Mech Warper and 1 Fire Guard, and that was enough.
It was a really weird game. I don't really see Mech Shaman games go like that. It's usually you win by overwhelming them early on with creatures, or you win because you hit with your creatures enough early so that you can burst them out. But like he won with a double Doomhammer and then all Burn Hand. He just like threw everything at the face and eventually just killed him.
Yeah. Okay, this is a really complicated match. Patron Warrior versus Rogue. They're moving through these first turns quick, but their decisions being made already. Coining out the Death Bite is a really big deal. He doesn't want to take any damage. He wants to set up the weapon for, I guess, the Acolyte next turn. But, you know, you could have coined Gnomish there. It would have challenged. You could have just played the Acolyte out and wait on the Death Bite, because there's no way you can threaten a Patron this turn.
Yeah. Now, I really like Nostam's hand here. He's got Emperor Thorsan already, and combine that with Cycle, which he had Gnomish Inventor. He's got Acolyte of Pain, Battle Rage already, and he's got two key combo pieces for Emperor to reduce with the Warsong Commander and the Frothing Berserker. So Nostam's looking like he's in a really strong position now. He's drawing his cards in the right order, I suppose, is a good way to put it.
Well, Justsaiyan after this still has to win 2 other matches, so he might be feeling a little frustrated at this point and just be more aggressive than he needs to be. He seems to be throwing his creatures out pretty readily. I guess he does have the sprint behind it, but seeing a Patron Warrior with that many cards, you have to be in a little bit of a nervous place of thinking, oh man, what kind of combo is going to come later in the game?
And this is another good card to be reduced by Emperor. I wouldn't be surprised if he just like throws out Acolyte and tries to draw, but it looks like he's going to start developing patrons. Patrons can be tough for rogues to deal with unless they have Blade Flurry, and a lot of times as a rogue it feels like, or as a patron warrior, you want to try and get them to use their removal spells inefficiently early on without you having invested much, because right now really the only card he's invested has been Grim Patron and Death's Bite. So if he gets multiple cards out to deal with this one card that's on the board, he's going to be pretty happy.
Yeah, I like this play a lot from Nostam. The patron's not really trustworthy in this fight, so then he's just saying, well, I'll throw it at him, make him use up his turn to remove it, and then I have Emperor coming down next turn, so as long as he's not playing anything, I'm in really good position.
And that's exactly what happens. He gets out a first charge of Oil plus an Eviscerate, and now he gets to play Emperor on a turn where Justsaiyan really doesn't have anything to do besides sap it. And if he saps it, all he's doing is playing a Valid Teacher, and he can't sprint that turn. So even though Nostam can't see the hand of Justsaiyan, he can imagine that by playing Emperor this turn, he forces Justsaiyan into a position where he's going to have an awkward turn.
Yeah. And the backstab is a pretty merciful draw. At least now he can, he has to sprint, right? With 2 sprints in his hand, he doesn't have the flurry. But yeah, just seeing, even if you know you can remove the Emperor here, seeing a Patron Warrior with 8 cards all buffed up is one of those feelings of, oh man, I have to end this game in 2 turns or I'm going to die.
Yeah. And I think that Nostam can actually set up for lethal over the next 2 turns if he draws into like a second Whirlwind effect here. So he can Gnomish Inventor. You do want to be a little bit careful of, I have seen a lot of rogues lately, especially in tournament play. Well, there's Second Whirlwind running Harrison Jones. But doesn't matter. He's got lethal next turn, so he's just going to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be a quick 3-0 for Nostam. He played this game really well. He knew exactly what he was going up against. This is, it's a pretty even match, but this is one of the better matches for the Rogue. But Nostam had that Emperor, he laid it out, he's got the combo set up, and he kept the Rogue board clear. With the Rogue not having anything, there's just not going to be a lot of plays.
Yeah, just doing Patron things. And
pretty much.
I think this is lethal.
Yeah.
He'd get a Whirlwind on 3 creatures. He'd get 2 Whirlwinds on 5 total creatures. So that'd be 24 damage, eyeballing it.
I think the Patron would kill him as well. You get 4 Patrons for 12. No, maybe not. You'd only get 15.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to sit through these animations. So the funny thing is, even if this didn't kill him, he could still Battle Rage, draw the rest of his deck, and then kill him the turn after that. So, yeah, that's an absurd amount of damage. But that's got to be pretty rough for Justsaiyan to come into this and go down that quickly in this best of 5. Nostam just 3-0s him. That whole best of 5 series lasted all of 20 minutes.
That's really too bad. I wanted to see the other decks that Saiyan brought, because we only saw the Rogue deck, and he was playing a non-Patron Warrior lineup, so I was super interested to see all of these choices of what he did to get through. They've already played a lot of matches at this point with these lineups. They had to go through like 8 best of 5 series and win all of them in a row. So I would have loved to see that Mage and Shaman and what type of Shaman he brought, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, there's still an opportunity that we might be able to see those decks. Just saying, we'll
True.
play in the third place match, which will happen after the next one. So Nostam moves on to the finals. He'll it guarantees himself at least $75 and at least 5 World Championship points. So he's going to be sitting in a good spot. He's going to face the winner of Dart versus Powder, which is the next match, and of course, Just Saying will face the loser of that match for third place. So he'll still have a chance to compete for $50. But when you make it
Yeah.
through a tournament like this where you play like 7, 8 best of fives and you just say, well, here's your one championship point and your
Yeah.
$50. It's rough, right?
Yeah, it is. You feel like, there was supposed to be another match today where you kept advancing more and instead you're stepping back and it just doesn't feel that good. But I mean, I don't think Just Saying played it badly, right? Those matches were played out correctly. It just didn't work his way. The Shaman game, he had 2 damage off lethal. The Hunter game, he was 1 damage off, or like it
Yep.
was very
One
close
mana
that
off.
1 mana off, right? That each time it was just this tiny fraction didn't connect and didn't manage to take the series.
Yep. And so we are going to go to a quick break, but during the break, guys, make sure you head over to geico.onog.gg. Of course, it's the website for the tournament, and Geico is the title sponsor for the summer circuit. On the website, you'll find more information about the tournament, how Geico points work. You can also enter in to win an official TSM PC. In the process, you'll get a Geico quote and can enter in for some newsletters if you choose. Well, not if you choose. You have to, but you can get rid of them. And the TSM PC is actually really sick. The specs are right down below the PC, right on the main page of the website. So if you're a fan of TSM or if you're just a fan of sick PCs, then you can head over there and do that. But we are going to go to a quick break. So the summer circuit action will continue right after this.